Statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out.
Welcome to another live talk with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez, and we're going to talk about a topic, Bitcoin, today. Got a very interesting topic I want to talk to you today about. I just want to make sure that we are okay as far as the connection is concerned. You can hear me properly. You can see me properly. There's no snags. And if not, let's go. Let's go. I do not want to keep you long. I know it is still the weekend. It's still Sunday for most of the world. It is late afternoon for me. And at the current moment, let's check on if we can, let's check on the current Bitcoin price. As many of you know, at least those who are familiar with some of my talks, that for whatever reason, when we have a talk here, Bitcoin tends to pump, So I'm all for that. Bitcoin currently sitting at 677 based on what I'm looking at here. Bitcoin has stayed stable over the weekend. And guys, if you've been following my work for any period of time, you know that I've always expected Bitcoin to repeat what it's done in every other former cycle. That right after the Bitcoin halving, it goes into a lull, what we call a backing and filling period, somewhat of a sideways, choppy, do nothing period, right into US presidential election time and right before US presidential election time, which is your latter part of October, you start to see bullishness return. This has happened virtually every single cycle of Bitcoin's history. And lo and behold, as soon as the middle of October came into play, we came off of the prior dip and started to display some bullish characteristics. We're still currently displaying bullish characteristics. I believe these bullish characteristics, for the most part, will stay in play all the way until the end of 2025. That is if history's any guide. And of course, history is a guide. It's the only guide that we have. All right. And so we're in the very best period, statistically speaking, of Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. Remember, Bitcoin operates off a 4-year cycle. So every 4 years, it's a mathematical protocol that is designed to not only be more scarce every 4 years of its life, not only to be more rare every 4 years of its life, but to also be at an all-time new high in terms of USD denominated prices every 4 years of your life until you die. A lot of people take issue with me whenever I tell them that. They say, Oliver, come on. How can you say Bitcoin has the mathematical ability to be at all-time new highs every 4 years for the rest of my life? I says, yes, not only for the rest of your life, but the rest of your children's lives and their children's lives and everyone else's lives in your bloodline after you. And the reason I can say this with great confidence is simply because of this. Monetary debasement, fiat debasement is guaranteed to mathematically be at an all-time new low every 4 years. Every 4 years, your purchasing power, whether you are using the dollar, the Argentinian peso, the Japanese yen, I don't care what dirty paper money out there you're using, every 4 years, your purchasing power is guaranteed to be at an all-time new low. So Bitcoin is mathematically designed to be the exact opposite because fiat currency's purchasing power is guaranteed to make new lows every 4 years of its life. Not every 1 year or 2 years, but every 4 years is guaranteed to be at new lows in terms of purchasing power. Because of that, Bitcoin is guaranteed to be at all-time new highs every 4 years because it's literally the opposite of monetary debasement. It's a protocol that's designed to mirror the opposite. So what does this mean? Every single time a central banker prints a dollar, Bitcoin's value goes up. Every single time they debase you, Bitcoin's value goes up. Every single time they lie, every single time they spend, every single time they manufacture another reason to spend your money, Bitcoin's value goes up. And let me tell you something, they will never stop spending your money. They will never stop printing money out of thin air. They will never stop the printing press from going burr. Never, never in your lifetime, not in your kid's lifetime. Period. Now, if you want just a simple, let me give you a simple example of how this will never stop. I want to show you, I've shown you this before, but I'm going to quickly show you once again why this will never stop. The printing of money will never stop. The money supply will never stop rising, ever. My mom used to say, Oliver, come on, be careful. Never say never. Mom, I'm sorry. Never. They will never stop printing, ever. It's been happening for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, guys. And I will show you this. I will show you so that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Once again, I'm going to put this in your face. I'm going to put this in your face. Now, what you are looking at is the money supply since it has been recorded all the way back to 1959. Okay, that's when it started to be recorded. Now, 1959, I want you to see it. This is 1959 down here at the far left. This is where we are now. All right. Now, you tell me, has that stopped going up since 1959? No, and it never will. Oh, it'll have some brief, tiny, minuscule pauses. Do you understand? But these pauses will never last for years. They will last a year, year and a half tops. Every 4 years, this is going to a new high, which is another way of saying every 4 years, your purchasing power is going to a new low. So as money supply increases, purchasing power decreases. So money supply at all-time new highs, purchasing power at all-time new lows, Bitcoin at all-time new highs every 4 years, forever. Tell me you understand this. Money supply at all-time new highs every 4 years, Bitcoin at all-time new highs every 4 years, purchasing power at all-time new lows every 4 years, Bitcoin at all-time new highs every 4 years. It's literally created to be the opposite of monetary debasement. It's inextricably intertwined. Tell me you understand this. A few of you let me know if you understand this. Is this too above you to understand? Is it going over your head? Or do you get it? You got it? All right, makes sense. Yes, most definitely. Awesome. Beautiful. Yes, guaranteed. Boom. So I want you to understand that that is not crazy. You know what's crazy? This chart's crazy. That's the crazy thing. But Bitcoin is tied to crazy. You understand? It's tied to crazy. That shit's crazy. Bitcoin's tied to crazy. But here's the beautiful thing. Monetary debasement will happen, even though it'll be at all-time new lows every 4 years, it'll happen at a rate of, depending upon what dirty paper you're using. So in the United States, you'll be at a rate of around 8% to 14%, and on crazy years, maybe 20%. But Bitcoin has an exponential response to that. So if monetary debasement is 14%, 12%, Bitcoin's 400% in the opposite direction. That has been its history. If you stay ahead of the money printer by hundreds, if not thousands of percent, which means that as a Bitcoiner, everything in life, the price of everything other than Bitcoin in life goes towards zero, trends towards zero. The life of a Bitcoiner gets cheaper every 4 years, guaranteed. Whereas that everyone else who does not have Bitcoin, their life gets more expensive. Their life gets harder every 4 years. Let me give you a quick example. I know a professor. I've known him for many years. He's a professor, a high-level mathematician in Venezuela. He told me, he said, Oliver, I used to have to work 2.5 hours. So 2.5 hours of my pay bought me a nice steak dinner and a glass of wine. 2.5 hours. So he has to give his life, 2.5 hours of his life, his time, his effort, his energy, his skill, his knowledge, his education, everything that he is. He has to give 2.5 hours of that for a steak dinner and a glass of wine. Today, he tells me, it takes him almost a month of work to buy a nice steak dinner and a glass of wine. What happened to his time? Do you understand? Do you understand? His life got exponentially harder. He used to have to only work 2.5 hours for a steak dinner and a glass of wine. The same steak dinner and the same glass of wine, today he has to work almost an entire month in order to purchase that. Life got exponentially harder for my mathematician friend in Venezuela. But in Bitcoin terms, when the 2.5 hour steak dinner, Bitcoin, let's say at the time, it took, I don't know, a very small amount of Bitcoin to purchase that steak dinner. Well, now it costs almost no Bitcoin to purchase that dinner. Life gets easier for a Bitcoiner. Life gets easier. Life gets cheaper. Life gets better. Life gets grander. Life gets bigger. Life gets richer. Life gets wealthier. But for everyone else in the world, it is the opposite. In your lifetime, your life has gotten harder every 4 years of your life. Every 4 years of your life, almost everything in your life costs more. And what you go out there to earn, you're not keeping pace with the rise of everything else in life. Your salary is not keeping up pace with that. Nothing is keeping pace with the theft of your time, your effort, your energy, your very life. So, Bitcoin is guaranteed to go to all-time new highs every 4 years of your life and forevermore, as long as there's fiat currency being printed, because that printing press guarantees that purchasing power goes to an all-time new low every 4 years. Bitcoin is inextricably intertwined in that relationship. It's like a seesaw. Purchasing power down, Bitcoin up. Purchasing power down, Bitcoin up. Purchasing power new low, Bitcoin new high. I didn't make this up. It's just the way it is, guys. It's just the way it is. Now, all right, I like to start off with a monologue like that. What I want to do is really I want to talk to you today about the main topic, which is why I believe Bitcoin will never see prices, USD denominated prices, below $100,000 again after 2025. I'm going to repeat that. That's what I want to talk to you about today. What I'm going to try to convince you, I'm going to try to show you why this is not crazy, why this is the likely scenario that after Bitcoin surpasses 100,000, after the year 2025, you, me, all of humanity, every human being born after, during 2025, after 2025, all the billions of human beings that are yet to be born, all of the billions of human beings already born, they will never see $100,000 again after 2025. I believe that the world is going to regard anyone who got into Bitcoin under 100,000 as a freaking incredible early pioneer. People are going to be like, are you kidding? You were in before 100,000? No, I don't believe you. They're not even going to believe you. No one's going to believe you. And you're going to be like, yeah, man, I got in at 99,000. No, you didn't get in at 99,000. Nobody got in at 99,000. This is going to be extraordinarily rare. It is going to be special. You think the people that got in under $10 or under $100, that's special. Oh no, 100,000 special, because the world is still short the upside. But $100,000 is that, that bell that you can't ignore. You can't ignore 100,000. That's that bell that rings all over the world. Bong! That bell that never stops ringing globally. Everybody's going to be like, what the hell is that bell? What is that bell? Somebody stop it. What is that? I can't get it out of my ear. What is that? That's Bitcoin surpassing $100,000. That's what that is. The 100,000 is a very powerful psychological number. It's a very important number for a variety of different reasons. It is a number where no institution can ignore it anymore. No bank, no central bank, no regular bank, no country, no nation state, no institution, no insurance company, no mutual fund, no ETF, nobody is going to be able to ignore Bitcoin past 100,000. Now, that's not why I'm telling you that Bitcoin will not drop below $100,000 after 2025. What I'm about to go into right now is the real reason I believe this is the case. Are you ready? You're ready to take some notes here. All right? Good. Let's go. What's that bell? What's that bell? Do you hear it? That's $100,000 bell. All right. Yeah. All right, let's go, guys. What you are looking at, guys, what you're looking at is the weekly, this is a simple 200 period weekly moving average of Bitcoin's price all the way back to the beginning. All right. So you see that the moving average kind of started in 2014 because you can't have a 200 period moving average without 200 periods, right? So we needed some 200 periods first, but this moving average, first of all, is one of the key metrics I want you always keeping your finger on the pulse of. Keep your finger on the pulse of the weekly 200. This moving average has never ticked down, never, throughout Bitcoin's history. I'm not saying it will never tick down in history. I'm just saying that it never has ticked down in history. Oh, it's tapered. Yes, it's taken a pit stop. It takes a rest, just like NASDAQ pulls into the pit stop, changes the oil quickly or changes the tires, boom, right back. It does that. but it is never ticked down. Do you understand? Never. And so in reality, stepping back is looking at Bitcoin's weekly 200 period moving average. Now, what's interesting about this, guys, is that Bitcoin's 200 just recently surpassed 40,000. Now, this is a milestone. It just passed 40,000. So Bitcoin, as we just mentioned, Bitcoin's trading at 68,000 and change, but it's 200 MA, 200 moving average, just crossed 40,000. Okay. Now, I want you to understand the importance of this moving average. From my perspective, is that it denotes generational wealth opportunity time. All right. So the reason I'm going to say that, the reason I say that is anything below the 200 period moving average, people, listen to me carefully. Any price below the weekly 200 period moving average is generational wealth, the generational wealth zone. If you can grab Bitcoin under the 200 weekly period moving average, that purchase will create generational wealth. I mean, all of them will, but especially that one. The generational wealth accumulation zone is under the 200 period moving average. And this has proven to be the case since the beginning of Bitcoin's history. So let me bring this chart up. Let me show you this. Always sort of like to show you. So we have let me bring this up and I'll do it in your face again. En tus caras. En tu cara. All right, let's do it. Let's do this. Let me get we got a weekly chart up here. Now, okay, got the weekly chart. Now let me put the 200 period moving average on this bad boy right here. All right. I have it grayed out so we can just bring it back here. Boom. Okay. There's a 200. Now, look throughout history. You see this? Look at the generational wealth opportunity time. If you can grab Bitcoin under, do you see this? If you can grab Bitcoin under, all right, that's generational wealth building zone. It's one of, in my opinion, as far as Bitcoin, one of the most guaranteed ways to generate generational wealth for yourself and your family, grabbing Bitcoin under the 200. So this is one main reason why it's extraordinarily important to keep your finger on the pulse of the weekly 200 period moving average. That zone under, when everyone's freaking out, when all of your ponytail wearing bears out there calling for Bitcoin 1,000, Bitcoin 3,000, Bitcoin 10, stupid shit like that. That's when you're going to see that in mass. And that's when you should be really piling into this asset. That's a generational wealth building zone. I'm going to give you some numbers. You might want to write them down. Okay. I like to look at the 200 in the past, which gives me the ability to project where the 200 is likely going to be in the future. Now, this is important because remember I told you that period under the 200 is the real juicy generational wealth accumulation zone. So coming up with a projected 200, things this way, projected 200 price is just as important as trying to come up with a projected USD denominated price of spot Bitcoin. In some ways, I think projecting the 200 is more important. Here's why. Let me give you some statistics. I just told you that the 200 The weekly 200 period moving average on Bitcoin just crossed 40. Now, if we go back to the last halving, okay, 2020, but we go back to the same day today, so October, what is it? October 20th, okay? October 20th, more or less, right? So October 20th, 2020, you go back to the 200 in 2020, you'll find that the 200 was around 6,800. So the 200 period moving average was at 6,800 more or less. The same day, this day, 4 years ago in October of 2020. 4 years later, today, we just crossed 440,000. So now let's do some math on this. If you were to calculate the percentage rise from 6,800 to 40,000, you come up with about 488% gain. That's a 488% gain. Okay? That's what the 200 period moving average experienced, a 488% rise in 4 years. Now, this rise, people, this rise occurred before there was a MicroStrategy, before there was nation states like El Salvador adopting the Bitcoin standard, before there was regulatory clarity on the asset, before there were spot Bitcoin ETFs, before the 4 biggest wealth managers on planet Earth pounding the table as Bitcoin marketers, before FASB rule changes. Do you understand? Before SEC approval of options on Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin ETFs, before US presidential candidates running on a Bitcoin pro platform, right? Before before the biggest holder of assets in the world, BNY Mellon, the biggest custodian in the world with $50 trillion of assets it's responsible for as a custodian. 50 trillion. Fighting for and getting approval to custody Bitcoin. Before before institutional sponsorship, there were no institutions in Bitcoin before 2020 to speak of. So before all of this, Bitcoin's 200 period moving average experienced a jump of 488% 4 year to 4 year. October to October, this October, 6,800 to 40,000. You get this, right? Now, this is before all of this bullishness. One would expect that the next 4 years, the possibility of the 200 jumping more than 488% because it did it without all of these things. What is it going to do with all these things? So I'm saying that there's great odds that this next 4 years, the jump in the 200 is far bigger than just 488% without all of these bullish things. But let's put that aside. Let's assume that with all of these extra bullish things, Bitcoin just simply repeats. So its 200 period moving average, 488% higher. October 2028 so 2028, October 2028, Bitcoin's 200 is at 288,000. If we do, no, that's wrong. October 2028, 488% up from 40,000 today. 4 years, maybe that's 235, something like that. So 200, let's run 235,000 to 200 in 2028, assuming Bitcoin just repeats what it did without all of this bullishness, the 200 is at 235,000. Now, remember I told you that the generational buy zone that is always pushed Bitcoin up exponentially is that period under the 200. Well, if our projected 200 is 235, the zone under 235 is above 100,000. We're talking 200,000, 180,000, 150,000. That's that zone under 235. It's not 60,000. It's not 50,000. It's not 40,000. We're talking about that space right under the 200. That's the cushion. That has been the cushion every single cycle. Do you understand? So I'm saying that based on a projected 200 period moving average, using metrics of last cycle, that cushion under 235 will prevent Bitcoin from dipping below 100,000. 100,000 is too deep below the 200 for that to be viable based on history. We were talking about the fact that a 488% rise, if we duplicate the rise in the 200 period moving average from last cycle to this cycle, we get about 235. The zone right under 235 is that real powerful supportive zone that is always served as that for almost all of Bitcoin's life. That is the generational accumulation zone. I don't believe that zone breaks down if I'm right with the projection of the 200 period moving average. I don't think that that zone breaks down below 100,000. So I think that once we pass $100,000, guys, this cycle, which is this year into next year, I just don't think that the drop that will typically, if history's any guide, come in 2026, the 2026 drop does not bring us below 100,000. Now, what I also want to show you is this, guys. I want you to look at how far above the 200 period moving average Bitcoin gets every cycle. The distance above the 200 it gets every cycle. What I am believing is that we get high enough does not get us below $100,000 again. Looking at Bitcoin's relationship to its 200 can really give us some very, very important clues here, guys. Very important clues. There's a certain surge away from the 200. We haven't really experienced that yet. There's also a rising of that 200. Last time it rose over a 4-year period, 488%. So if we extrapolate that out, the 200 gets to 235,000, which means that Bitcoin's peak will have to be very nicely above 235. Every single cycle takes it way past the 200. So if the 200 gets to 235 based on last cycle's metrics, and what would you have to say? Bitcoin 600,000, 500,000, 700,000? I don't know. But in order to get the 200 there, you're going to have to really be way above that. So if you think about it, yeah, you're going to have to be way above that, guys. So 235, 200 period moving average big space above. Look at all the times there was big space above the 200, guys. Big space above the 200, right? Space to the peak. Space to the peak. Space to the peak. Space. Remember, the 200 is going to be higher to the peak. It's very fascinating to look at Bitcoin's price activity in conjunction with its 200 weekly period moving average. All right. So, guys, in my opinion, when you are in doubt of anything, when it comes to Bitcoin, let me show you this. When you're in doubt of anything, right? I think, holy shit, did I tell you? Did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that Bitcoin pumps every time I do a lot? 69, baby. Didn't I tell you this? Look at that. I told you. I told you. All right. So if you're ever in doubt, guys, keep your finger on the pulse of that weekly 200 period moving average. That forces you to step back and to eliminate all this day-to-day, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter noise. Now, Hank is saying something interesting here. He's saying that, well, we had an 80 vol asset, Oliver, but, volatility is going down. I think that's only temporary. You're going to get a waning in volatility, but I just don't think so fast. I think that you have lulls in volatility the same way you have lulls in price. And the reason for this is because of the scarcity of Bitcoin, guys. You understand? The scarcity of Bitcoin actually prevents, because so much is in self-custody, out of circulation, you have a small float. Whenever something has a small available float, it will always retain high volatility. You understand? So it's unique in that respect that most of the supply is off the market in cold storage. Most of your Bitcoin is not available in the market. This affects volatility, especially when elephants are involved. So the institutions are elephants, right? The elephants have come to play with a dwindling amount of supply that's available. My supply is not available to the elephants. Your supply, if you have it in cold storage, is not available to the elephants. It makes an ever so shrinking, already small amount of supply only available to an ever-growing institutional elephant-like audience. That leads to volatility. You can't tell me that an elephant stepping into a bathtub doesn't violently move the water in the bathtub. The water doesn't stay calm when an elephant steps in. Now, if an elephant steps in the ocean, that's a very different story, right? But Bitcoin's not an ocean. It's a shrinking little bathtub. And when elephants are coming to this bathtub, no one's going to tell me that these elephants stepping into a bathtub is not going to violently move the water. So, I would say don't confuse the lulls that you see for permanence. All right. This is not going to be permanent. We're still going to have, high volatility in the asset. Thank God, because volatility, you want the volatility, especially with an asset, guys, that is volatile it's volatile in your favor 3-to-1. The volatility is to the upside 3-to-1. Yes, we have volatility to the downside, but it's 3-to-1 to the upside. Just very, very powerful. That's funny. Bitcoin is wife changing. All right. PJR said that. Bitcoin is wife changing. I love that. All right. Oliver, why does Bitcoin always pump on a Sunday? I think it's because I always do a live on a Sunday. No, I'm teasing. I think it's largely due to the APs of the ETFs starting to go to work, to be honest with you. That's my theory. My theory is that they start Japanese hours. They start Eastern hours, the APs, the approved partners of the ETFs, they go to work. They go to work now. They go to work 5 p.m. more or less, New York time. They start going to work on Sunday because that's really the beginning of Monday. It's the beginning of Monday for the States is literally the start of trading the Japanese market. A lot of people don't know that.
Les, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!